Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Easter Pod. I'm your host, Corey Easterday, and on this episode, we are chatting with the one and only Jason Sowell. As we cover in our conversation, Jason is the founder and CEO of Current Initiatives, a speaker, writer, minister, wedding officiant, host of the Boldly Going podcast, and always my favorite part of his biography, a pro surfer in another timeline. Current Initiatives is a nonprofit organization that hosts several initiatives all across the country to help meet a tangible need for families. And it also happens to be where I serve as the national director and have done that the last several years. And because I believe in the mission and the vision of the organization so strongly, I have been involved in many different capacities over the last 13 years. Before I moved to Charlotte, I was the Ohio director. Before that, I was just a college student in Canton, Ohio, hoping to get this initiative off the ground in my community. So it's been a long and storied journey for myself, my friendship with Jason, being a part of Current. And because Current turns 15 this year, holy crap, 15 years old, started back in 2008. Jason was in town a couple weeks ago at the time of this recording, toward the end of June, for our Charlotte Laundry Project initiatives. And it just made too much sense to get him back on the pod and talk all things current, hope, dignity, love, laundry, and more. Jason and I, when we're chatting, we dive into everything related to Current, all the details you could need to know, including our Laundry Project initiative and what that's all about. But since we recorded before we had our two Charlotte Laundry Project events that I just referenced, I wanted to give a quick update on how those went up top here in the intro. And as I mentioned, at the end of June, we hosted two Laundry Project events in one day at the same time across the city of Charlotte, two different laundromats. And we had 20 plus volunteers. We had 89 families attend that washed an incredible, amazing 746 loads of laundry, which works out to be about 7,460 pounds of laundry, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. That's a ton of laundry. We had so many people involved there that day. It was just a beautiful thing to see everyone come together, to be able to spend time with the families and the individuals, everyone that was at both projects. It was just a phenomenal, phenomenal day. And if you visit our Instagram, @EngageCurrent, you can see more details, photos, news stories, all that good stuff from our Charlotte Laundry Project events and all the laundry projects that we do across the country. But I'll just say, for me on a personal level, it was so cool to see that dream come to fruition of bringing the Laundry Project here to Charlotte. Finally, we moved back in 2018. It took a while, many mitigating circumstances, but it's been so cool over the last, I think October of last year is when we started to kind of do the project here in Charlotte and bring it to this area. And to have the opportunity to see our amazing community right here rally together and meet a tangible need while just empowering and affirming the dignity of each family we encountered at the laundry projects and throughout has just been, it's been a dream come true. And I would also be remiss if I didn't shout out, I'm walking in the footsteps of so many great nonprofit organizations that were already here in Charlotte when we got here, so many people doing so many cool things to help the community, many of which I have interviewed on this podcast or hope to get on this podcast in the near future. So it's just been cool. I lived in Ohio my whole life. Charlotte's the first city that I moved to, and since living in Ohio, and there's just so many great people here. I can't say enough about it. So check out the podcast to hear some of their stories. I try to promote those things on my personal page as much as I can. So get plugged in if you're in Charlotte with all the cool stuff that's going on here in the community. And like I said, check out Engage Current on Instagram to see what we did at that Charlotte Laundry Project event. And Jason and I have known each other for a long time, and honestly, I love him to death. He's been one of the best friends I've had in my entire life. So it's just always really cool to be able to sit down and chat with him and do it in this podcast format. And he's just simply a phenomenal human being. He's done so much to make the world and the individual lives of everyone he encounters just better. So stay tuned for our conversation, because it's always a super fun and interesting time when we sit down for a chat. And it's personally really cool and an honor for me to be able to share more of his personal story through the podcast, follow up on a previous episode we did, and just get more information about Current out into the world and get his thoughts on that. As always, thanks for listening, and be sure to check out our last episode with the Associate Director of Family Empowerment for Shermco right here in Charlotte, Matthew Gibson. I really enjoyed learning more about Matthew's story, all the incredible and important work he does with Shermco, and overall just gained a lot of wisdom and inspiration from our conversation. Matthew is simply a great human who does a lot to try and build up and empower those around him. So I really encourage you to check out our conversation and prepare to gain a lot of wisdom, encouragement, and inspiration from who he is and his story. As always, be sure to follow the show on social media at The Easter Pod and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice so that you never miss an episode. And also be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, social media, wherever you can connect with the podcast. It always helps the show a ton to get that feedback, to get those ratings and reviews. So please be sure to do that as well. And before we dive in, special thanks to my friend Corey Easterday and Speak Seldom for creating the music for this episode, and to my guy JD Laird and his phenomenal crew over at his company Token for helping to produce this episode and make it all happen behind the scenes. Check out Token's work by visiting tokencreative.co. Lastly, check out Current Initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, at Engage Current on all the social platforms, and visit engagecurrent.org to learn more about the work we do, our initiatives, and be sure, of course, check out Jason's personal socials at Jason Sowell, Sowell. Check out all the awesome things he does in addition to Current on his personal socials at Jason Sowell. And you can visit jasonsowell.com to learn more. Without further ado, my conversation with Jason Sowell. Well, for those familiar with the work of Current Initiatives, my guest today needs no introduction, but I love him and I'm happy he's here, so I'll give him one anyway. He is the founder and CEO of Current Initiatives, the man who employs me, and when the opportunity came up to get him in the studio and, just make sure I'm building up the guy that signs the paychecks, and my friend here, got him in for a follow-up interview to a previous episode of the Easter Pod. I couldn't pass up the chance. He's my guy, the one and only Jason Sowell. Welcome to the Easter Pod. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks.
But you never had an intro like that on a podcast before.
No, I haven't. I like that you started with a man that needs no introduction.
And then
but
promptly
but needs an introduction.
But actually, I'm
no one listening knows who I am.
I would argue the opposite. You're worldwide out here. You're doing laundry projects nationwide. You get lots of interviews and stuff going for you.
Yeah, my nickname is Mr. Worldwide, so it makes sense.
And this is what you can look forward to the rest of the podcast. If you've listened to episodes of the Easter Pod before, first of all, you're an amazing, incredible person. But Jason's my guy. Honestly, I've known him for 13 years. We've been in this laundry project and Current Initiatives game and everything Current does for that amount of time and have become great friends over the years. So this, in addition to when I have my lovely, amazing wife, Megan, on the show, are probably the least more formal type interviews I'll ever be doing, because it's just nice to kick back, with friends and people that, a lot of the guests I have on the show are people that I may not have as much history with, or I really want to get to know, like kind of dive into what they're doing and really maybe develop a rapport. But since we already kind of have that going, should be a fun time. So why I have you returning as a guest on the pod, specifically, I thought it would be good to get you in the studio here. I mean, obviously, you're here in person. The last time we did it was over Zoom, which is totally workable. That's fine. But I definitely prefer like the in-person dynamic with podcast guests. But
yeah, definitely.
Way better. But this is the 15th anniversary of Current Initiatives, which is a huge, huge deal. And later this year, we're coming up on almost 1,000 laundry projects, probably hit that sometime later this year. There's so many good reasons to just get you here, get you in the studio, chat about all that. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess that's probably as good a place to start as any. Just 15 years of Current Initiatives, maybe like talk about, for people that don't know what Current is, kind of the brief overview, and then just what it means for that celebrating 15 years.
Sure. Excuse me. Yeah, 15 years. It's crazy. It sometimes feels like longer, sometimes feels like shorter. Depends on how much I'm working with you, which way that goes.
I figured that would be the context. The days where we have to communicate more, it feels longer.
Feels longer.
Yeah.
No, 15 years is a huge milestone, especially considering the average organization, even startup business, like average is like 3 to 4 years is about what they typically make. So I don't know what we've done, but we've made it this long. And I remember in 2008 when we started, we sat down with an attorney to work on the legal documents. It was working up our 501c3 documents and all that, and telling him what we were planning on doing and stuff. And the attorney just goes, "Man, you picked a terrible time to start a nonprofit organization, because it's 2008. The economy's in bad shape. Everything's a wreck." And I remember saying to him when he said that, and I didn't know this guy at all, but I just remember saying like, "Yeah, but I figure if I can make it work when the economy sucks, we'll be fine when it gets better." And here we are. So somehow that's creeped in over 15 years, and we're still here.
Could argue that was the perfect time to start doing what we're doing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's true. It's from a fundraising side, it was the perfect side. People weren't trying to give away money so much.
Fair point.
But yeah, Current, it's for me, was born out of my ministry background of doing missions work and being a little frustrated with how the church world environment that I was in and how we did missions work, and nothing wrong with going to other countries and stuff, and it's important to do that. But I realized one day we're passing neighborhoods in our own city to go to another country, and the neighborhood we're passing in some ways economically and otherwise is just as bad off as the country we were about to fly to, but we're not doing anything for that neighborhood that's 5 minutes down the road. We're flying across the world to go do something. And then the other thing for me was not having, spending a lot of time not doing real tangible things that were going to help people in those countries that we're going. Building a church, building things like that, which is important, but leaving there going, well, they're still sick from something that could be cured and taken care of by something that I get at Walgreens. That they just don't have access to, and we didn't bring anything for that. We're not helping them with that part. And that was a little frustrating to me. So Current was kind of born out of that idea of like, let's work to focus right here in our own city, which is Tampa, that I started, where I live and where we started, Tampa, Florida. And, let's meet something tangible. Let's do something that's an actual physical, tangible need that's kind of overlooked. And there it went.
Which is kind of the story that I heard when I randomly reached out in 2010, a couple years after you started Current, as a college student, which was kind of your target demo in a lot of ways at that point, like starting I mean, you could obviously speak more to that, but I just, fit pretty well in that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really know what I was doing. The only experience I had was with starting a church. Because I had started a couple churches at that point. And so Current, to begin with, looked very much like a college ministry, essentially. It kind of started with the people that I knew and had contact with were college students some were my previous students when I was a youth pastor and stuff like that. And so I just started with a group of people that I knew. And at the time it was college students, and that's kind of where it went, and didn't really have a plan. The laundry project wasn't even a thing yet. I was figuring out. We were actually meeting on campus at University of South Florida, doing a pseudo church type service, but not a church. And it was really more me kind of teaching and working through what I was trying to figure out, what I wanted us to be, and it was fueled by my faith, but was not intended to be a church, but it kind of looked like it to begin with. And then it kind of went from there. And 15 years later, we've got all people from all walks of life all over the country that are involved.
Yeah. I mean, hundreds, thousands, whatever number you want to put on it in terms of volunteers and, families that the organization has served and interacted with. And so going back, to that 2008, it starts, everything you just covered. 2010, I kind of hop in. I resonated a lot with what you shared about why it started in the first place, because I also came from a very church ministry was kind of all I had known in many ways up to that point. Mm-hmm. Growing up in a poverty situation, single mom household, all that kind of stuff. I had been a recipient of a lot of charities and nonprofit initiatives and things like that, and they helped sustain our family through some really tough times, a lot of the things that were available in our community. But it was at that time in 2010 as a college student when I started to make the connection of, okay, not just my story and what my family had been through, but how can I exactly what you said, help people in my own community. And making that connection can be a very powerful thing, just that awareness of my whole church experience was, yes, exactly like you said, we're going to go, I grew up in a small church that was really heavy on the missions, like sending people overseas and all that, which you said, like you said, that plays a part, and that can play an important part, but just that lack of connection I felt to going to church and then being active in my own community. And actually around that same time, I reached out to you. I gotten involved in a church called Love Canton that was kind of modeled after, like, we're going to plant ourselves in the community with people and do more of these types of initiatives. So there's a lot of important connection for me. And the first thing that I got connected with that I think, aside from everything you described, was like one of the first big initiatives that Current started was the laundry project. Mm-hmm. For those who may not be aware, talk about the laundry project. How did that become the next piece to kind of building this thing out?
The laundry project is an initiative that we work with laundromats in largely lower income communities. And we work with the laundromat to provide free laundry services for financially struggling families, anyone using a laundromat that comes in. So, typically we have a team of volunteers that goes into the laundromat for roughly 3 hours, usually, typically on a Saturday morning. And anyone coming in the door, laundry's free for them. We don't do the laundry for them. They do their own laundry. But it's paid for by the organization. We provide soap and bleach and all the laundry supplies necessary that they would need while they're there. And all built around the idea of helping, one, meet that financial burden, and two, turning that laundromat into, what we say is turning the laundromat into a community center of hope, bringing hope into a space that's not very hope-filled. You've been in laundromats a lot. They're not fun places to hang out typically. You add on top of that the financial burden that families are dealing with. And what kind of started that idea, I was in Southern California, and was with some friends, and we went to a laundromat. They took some, a homeless guy that they knew to a laundromat, washed his clothes. And it wasn't that guy. What got me was ended up talking to a family for a little bit in there, and them talking about they had made the choice that week to either wash their family's clothes, do their laundry, or buy groceries. And that was heartbreaking to me that was a choice that anyone was making, that either we're going to have food this week or we're going to wash our clothes. And so when I came back to Tampa, I just started working on how can we work to alleviate that burden for people. So we started the laundry project, had no idea what we were doing. Picked out a laundromat in an area, in a lower income area. Tried to find the owner of the laundromat, couldn't find any owner information. So we just decided, all right, well, we'll just go start doing it. And if the owner shows up and tells us to leave, then we'll leave. And we did that for about 6 months before any kind of connection with the owner. And the way the owner found out is that we ended up having a news story by the Tampa Bay Times. A reporter did a story, and the owner was sitting. It's like a Friday morning. The Friday, like the story came out, and he and his wife are, sitting at their dining room table having breakfast, drinking coffee or whatever, and he's reading the newspaper, and he sees this story in the newspaper about his laundromat, and he tells the story that he looks at his wife and says, "Hey, honey, our laundromat's in the news today," and her response was, "Did somebody die at our laundromat? Did someone die at our laundromat?" And he said, "Oh, no, it's actually for a good thing," and tells her the story. And so he reached out to the reporter, and the reporter connected us. And then, since then, he's actually been on our board, one of our board members, and one of our biggest supporters over the years. Incredible guy. But we started with no real understanding of what we were doing, no real plan. It was just, let's go. This is a need that people have that we see in our community. Let's go figure out a way to help people with this. And I remember reading a book before I started Current. It was by a guy named Guy Kawasaki. It's called The Art of the Start. It's a great book. He was one of the original Apple evangelists, and he talks about a little bit of like the Apple philosophy, at least in the early days. It probably still carries through, that the philosophy was, don't try to make it perfect before you put it out in the world. Whatever product you're working on, if you wait to perfect it, to make sure all the bugs are worked out and that everything is perfect, you'll never put the product out. And if you do, by the time you do, it's already been surpassed and you got to come up with another product. Their philosophy was, the product works, it's functional, get it out in the world. And one, the world will tell you what the bugs need to be fixed. And two, as you've put it out in the world, you're also still working on it and tooling with it to improve it as you go. And so that was kind of a core philosophy just internally for me. So when we started the laundry project, that's kind of what it was. It's like, well, we don't have all the answers and all to how we're going to do this and make it work and what it'll look like, but we're just going to go do it and figure it out as we go.
Which is, without having that same influence, you did send me that book one time, and as I read through it, like very early on, I remember, very influential book, but that idea exactly. That's how I even got connected. Like everything you described was kind of the same, of taking friends, and we would go travel around Canton, Ohio in cars and just walk into laundromats and try to pay for laundry or whatever. And then one of those friends was like, through doing that, through getting kicked out of laundromats, through going through some of the similar struggles that maybe you're going through in some ways, it's a friend connected me like, hey, here's this, what's the main paper in St. Pete?
It's the Tampa Bay Times.
Is it okay, so it was probably a Tampa Bay Times story that was covering a recent project you guys had done. I was like,
it was probably the same story that the owner.
It might have been actually. Yeah, it wasn't that long into it. And I was like, I would like to work the bugs out of this. I would like to not get kicked out of laundromats. So yeah, I like what this guy's doing. I'm gonna send him an email. So.
Yeah, that's true. Fortunately on our side, we did know enough to not just like go in there and hand people money or just leave money laying around. Like it was intended to be relational. That it wasn't just, great, here's money, see you later, like pay for your laundry. It was intended to be, we're interacting with people. We're putting quarters in the machines for them. The reason that we have volunteers put the quarters in instead of just handing people the card or the money is because we want those human beings to interact. You have to stand there at the machine and do something, and you have to talk to that person while you're doing it.
100%. And that's what I resonate with about it. I think those random trips in cars only lasted a handful of times, and I was like, this is not what I had envisioned. This is no good, because it totally lacked the relational piece. And you and I have actually, I remember one time very distinctly that we were in a laundromat somewhere, and there was a group in there already doing that exact thing. Just kind of like, we had a project plan that day. They were just in there handing out quarters, and it was like, it just kind of had a very like, I don't know if adversarial is the right word, but it didn't, what I mean to say is it didn't have the relational vibe that, you know, we strive for, the community center of hope that the laundry project strives for.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like a transactional kind of deal. And that's what I appreciate about the laundry project early on, and why, unbeknownst to me at that time, it became such a big part of my life for so long, because, I want to get into this a little bit more later in the interview, but you did a TED Talk recently where you kind of talked about the philosophy of Current and the how being just as important as the what you're doing. And that resonated with me early on. It's resonated throughout. And, you know, it's been consistent in how Current enacts its mission over this 15 years that, yes, we're working out the bugs, figuring all that out. But the one thing to me, at least, that's been there from the start is that emphasis on the relational piece, treating people with dignity, being empowering. And I think the connection that sparks for a lot of people, and why the laundry project has resonated nationwide with so many people, is it's meeting that tangible need, but then it's like the way that we do it and how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a piece that I feel like a lot of times organizations, even businesses, kind of don't pay attention to. So, you know, we might identify a need and go, great, let's meet that need. But we don't take the time to ask the next question of, is the plan that we put together to meet this need, is how we are doing this dignifying and empowering to the people that are receiving it? Or is it elevating and dignifying to us, the people that are doing it? Is it embarrassing for the people that are receiving it? Does it make them feel less than? All of those kinds of things are important, and all of it's in good heart. And the example that I have for myself that I use when I talk about it is that when we started Affordable Christmas, for example, one of our initiatives, and we knew why we were doing it and the way it's set up, where, you know, families are not just coming in and being handed some random Christmas things for their kids, but they're shopping. They get to pick out what they know their kid is looking for, what they know their kid will love, what they'll be happy being able to give to their kid for Christmas. And then they're paying for it at 1/10 of the retail cost. So it makes it affordable for them, kind of leaving their dignity intact, empowering them as parents. And as we say, the statement we use, we actually got from a customer one of the first years, a single dad that came and shopped and bought a bicycle for his son. And I just happened to be the one walking out to his car with him, helping him carry stuff. And I'm pushing the bicycle and asking him about who the bicycle's for. And he's telling me about his son, bragging on his son and how much he deserved a great Christmas and all this. And him saying, the one thing that my son asked for Christmas this year was a bicycle. And I had to tell my son, don't get your hopes up because dad can't afford that this year. And he said, I get invited to this event, and I get to buy this bicycle inside my budget, which he's paid $10 for his brand new bicycle that off the rack was like $90. And he's like, fits with my budget. And what he said is what became the philosophy is, now I get to go home and be the hero to my son. And it reminded me of when I worked for a church and we would do Christmas for families. And I remember doing this one, and we had this family that was there, and we did kind of the typical, or it was a little bit different, but it was kind of the typical run of the mill. Like, we have a list of things that the kids from these families want for Christmas. People in the church go buy them. We gift wrap them. We bring them to church. we surprise this family. The family doesn't know that it's going to be this Christmas event. We bring the families down front, and Christmas music starts playing, and everyone gets up, and like random strangers with wrapped gifts come to that family with those kids and hand them their gifts, and like, you know, the kids are unwrapping them, and kids are happy because obviously they're getting their Christmas gifts for them, right? They're excited. But it wasn't them, it was the dad standing behind one of the families, and how embarrassed he was in that moment. And so when I was standing there and hearing this guy say to me, now I get to go home and be the hero to my son, it gave me a flashback to this time, seeing this dad utterly embarrassed standing behind his kids while a bunch of random strangers handed his kids Christmas gifts, and the two opposing ideas of that. And both are in good heart, but it could be done better. It could be done in a way that's dignifying for that dad rather than embarrassing to that dad. And so that's kind of a philosophy that we tend to run off of.
And, you know, that I've heard that story before. It's super powerful and super kind of on point about why, you know, everything we're talking about, like the how being as important as the what, being dignifying, being empowering. And then I connect that with my own experience growing up of my mom and myself and my little sister, and kind of being the family in that scenario. Not directly, I don't think we ever caught up on stage at a church, but that was often how my mom was able to provide for us for Christmas, was through adopt-a-families, giveaways, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And the stark contrast, I didn't have language for it as a kid. Obviously, I'm just a kid. I'm like, oh, I get gifts, whatever. But looking back on it as an adult, it's like there was a big change in her, the Christmases where, or even just if it was a Christmas where some of the gifts were through these things versus she bought what she could. Yeah. The gifts where it's like she would light up like the Christmas tree when it was a gift that she bought that we were opening, or when she was able to provide it. I mean, and the dignifying piece of being at food kitchens and like all these places trying just to survive and get through the day-to-day tangible needs that you have. And I can remember back as a kid, the places where we definitely felt like we were the poor people that, wow, we're so lucky to be here in the presence of the people that are helping us. Yeah. Versus like, hey, you're human. We're in this together. Like, we're just here to, we want to get to know you and like care about you. And it's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think just culturally, we have a big problem with a lot of things around that, of the fact that it's embarrassing for someone to have to say that they're struggling and they need help. That is a cultural problem that we have to deal with. Like, it should not be, that dad should not have to feel embarrassed that he can't afford to buy a bicycle for his son, or provide something. That family should not be embarrassed that, or should not even have to be made to feel embarrassed that, yeah, we had to choose between groceries or laundry this week. If we go back to my faith, like, Jesus would never create that kind of culture for people. Like, everything that he taught, the least of these will be the greatest of these. Washing of feet, all of those things are indicators of it's the people that are the struggling are the people that should be lifted up, the people that we should help, and not in a way that is glorifying to us, but in a way that is dignifying for them and empowering to them. And, it is like, I'll give you a great example. There's a organization in Tampa that has, it's called Trinity Cafe, and they it's free meals for, like you mentioned, the soup kitchen idea. It's it's a similar idea. It's the idea of like homeless people and lower income, financially struggling people that are just struggling to have meals and have a good meal. But they design it in a way where it's like a sit down restaurant, and you're served food at your table the way you would be at a restaurant. Not, all right, here's the soup kitchen line, and grab your plate, and you walk through, and someone standing behind the table is, pouring a spoonful of whatever it is into your bowl as you move down the line. This is a come in, sit down, you're at a table like we're sitting at, and you're with a table host basically that's there, and you order your food, like whatever the menu is for the day, you order, and the person goes and makes your plate and brings it just the way you would at a restaurant. And it's just like, it's the same idea. It's just thought through of how do we do this in a way that is dignifying for the person receiving it.
Those are some of my, and we're obviously both all in on current initiatives. So to flip that outward for a second, I mean, we both interacted with, there are tons of nonprofits out there that are doing and churches and like places that just kind of get it, so to speak, and are doing exactly what you just described, that are empowering families, dignifying, helping like with development in all kinds of ways, and like really changing the game. And that's been super encouraging to interact with and see in that example you mentioned, other examples I could mention. And I think what's really important there and what you shared about, you said it was called Trinity Cafe. Yeah. Just a little tweaks. Sometimes that's all it takes. Like we have to meet needs, like, or let me rephrase that. Meeting needs is important. All these things are important, but sometimes it's the big kind of systemic overhaul, and sometimes it's just the little tweaks of, we're going to do this, but put a spin on it.
Yeah. But even the tweaks, though, I think a lot of times it's because it takes more work. It takes more work to think through that. And sometimes the better option of doing it in a dignified way, that option sometimes requires more work than it does to just hand the person the thing. It requires, so let's break their process down. It's much easier to just set up a row of tables and have a couple of people standing behind those tables and, serving out of a large tray onto someone's plate. That's easy, right? Having a room with tables set up and a table host and people serving, and the way you would get it at a restaurant. I mean, it's not the same level of what a restaurant would be, but that same kind of process takes more work, takes more people, takes more hours to get that set up, takes more work for it to be fleshed out that way. And I think a lot of times it really comes down to like, we're looking for the easy way to help, and good or bad, I don't know, but like, we don't think about, is it good for me? I'll give you another example. We did the Hope for Homes project, which is a home renovation project that we do where we kind of an extreme home makeover, but instead of tearing a house down and building a new one, we just renovate the structure that's already there and just make it more energy efficient, better appliances, all these things to fix their house that they need, puts them on a better financial situation. But I remember telling a contractor one time, because we got into a little bit of an argument about this one particular thing that we're doing on this house, and their statement or their view of it at the time was, well, they should be thankful. Like, they're getting all this for free. They should just be thankful. And it was something like, it was almost like it'll be done like 3/4 of the way instead of like fully, like, we're getting throwaway wood to fix this. And so they should just be thankful that it's done that way anyway. And what I said to him was, is that how you would do it for your own family? Because if that's not good enough for your family, it's not good enough for this family. Just because they're poor, just because they're in a lower income neighborhood, just because of all these different factors that they live a different life than you do, is it good enough for your family? Is this how you would do it on your own home, for your own family, for your own kids? No, you wouldn't do that for your own kids that way? Then you shouldn't do it that way for these people. Like, we're all on the same playing field. Just because you have more money than they do and you live a different lifestyle, if it's not good enough for your family, it's not good enough for them. And that's when it comes to Hope for Homes and even everything, that's another one of our philosophies that I look, all of that for me is a dignity piece of like, is this how I would do it for me and my own family? If the answer is no, then that's not good enough for the people that we're helping.
And Affordable Christmas is again, a perfect example of the things you're describing here, which I have to shout out. I mean, my friend Josh, like Mission St. Louis, where, I mean, Affordable Christmas, just like the Laundry Project, it's one of those ideas that is just kind of like spread like wildfire, and like putting our own spin on it and how these organizations do it, just trying to meet needs and do it in a dignifying way. But Mission St. Louis, shout out, where I very first heard about it in 10, 11, 12 years ago. At this point, is a long time ago. But Affordable Christmas is a perfect example to me, because the thing you were saying about, would you, for your own family, kind of thing. And we don't do like used toys or like what it's
right.
like the best of the best. It's like truly things that are, in the past we've done like bikes, tablets, like all kinds of things that a family, like any of us, would be super ecstatic to get, and just helping it to be affordable. And then the tweaks thing, you're right. Sometimes like small tweaks can make a big difference, but they take so much more work, because, we both are fully aware of how much work it takes to pull off, an affordable Christmas each year. And it's much more involved, much more complicated, but the end result is so much more worth it. So that is an initiative in addition to the Hope for Homes Laundry Project. Those are all perfect examples of all the kind of philosophical things we're talking about. And it makes me think back to the episode I just had with my friend Matthew Gibson, who works for Shermco, that's based out of Huga here in Charlotte. And he's their associate director of family empowerment. And basically they're a firm that what they do is community listening. It's working with families, and it's saying like, what, we're not just going to come in and start implementing all these solutions. We're going to actually do it in a relational way, and like hear where you're coming from, and build it up together, basically. And there's a phrase that I want you to talk a little bit about that I'm not sure where its origins, but you brought it into current. It's that idea of doing what you can. How does that kind of play into this?
So it's interesting, when I was flying home from Las Vegas, because we had laundry projects that weekend, that in the United States, when everything in the United States started shutting down as the pandemic started. I was in Las Vegas doing some laundry projects, and we had to retool a little bit because of what was happening with the pandemic at the time. And I remember getting on the airplane to fly home, and no one really knew, even the flight attendants, people didn't really know how to interact at that point. And like, what do we do with our hands kind of thing? Like, the Will Ferrell thing of like I don't know what to do with my hands. Yeah. Ricky Bobby. And, it just being kind of this weird thing. And I watched, it was unrelated, but I just decided to watch, a movie that I'd been wanting to see for a bit on the plane, a movie called Jojo Rabbit by Taika Waititi. And it looked like an interesting movie. I'd been wanting to see it for a while. So I'm on the flight, and I'm like, I'll watch this movie on the flight. And so I watched it, and there's a without giving too much away, there's a couple of discussions between the main character Jojo and his mom, and they're walking through. It takes place during World War II in Germany, and during the days of they're seeking out spies within the German people, and then like public square hangings of these people that they deem to be spies. And so mom and son are walking through the town square, I think probably going to school or maybe going grocery shopping. I don't know, something like that. And here's like 3 or 4 people hanging in the town square. And Jojo looks at his mom, and like they stop and they're just looking. And Jojo looks at his mom and says, "Mom, what did they do?" And her answer was very simple. It was like an answer, but a non-answer. And she said, "They did what they could." And that was it. That was her answer. And at the time, Jojo doesn't know that his mom is actually also a sympathizer with the Allied forces. And so she's giving him an answer without giving him an answer. But later on down the road in the movie, his story that he has to stand up and do something that's right. He has to do what's right in a moment. And he's looking at himself in the mirror, and he recalls his mom's answer to his question. And he looks at himself in the mirror and he says, "Jojo, just do what you can." And that was his motivation for himself that day, to go do what he had to do that was right. And I just remember watching that and those two scenes just striking me in the moment. And in a time when we were trying to figure out how we were going to respond to the pandemic with things shutting down and still being able to do the laundry project and helping families and helping people, because I knew as this rolls on, it's going to get worse and there's going to be more people that would typically not need access to the laundry project that are probably going to need it because people are going to be not working for a while. There's all these ripple effects that are going to happen. And for me, we didn't have all the answers, all the right things that we knew we were going to do. But that statement of today, just do what you can is what became like the guiding principle for a bit of we don't have to fix everything. We don't have to fix all the problems. We don't have to have all the answers and all the solutions. We don't know what to do in a lot of things. I don't know what to do about this over here. I don't know what to do about that over there. But I do know that what can I do? I can do this. I can take this one step right here. Okay, let me do that because I know I can do that. So do what you can. So that's where that kind of became from. And it's still somewhat a guiding principle for what we do. It's a reminder that we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to change the world, but we can help the life of the one person standing right in front of us. So let's do that.
And that's been even before it was a phrase that the movie introduced and that you kind of implemented within Current. I remember just feeling so much freer from the kind of the simplicity of that idea, being involved with Current very early on, because as a 20-something, going through everything I went through growing up and just becoming increasingly aware of the issues in my community, the larger global issues, all that kind of stuff, it just can, and I've talked with a lot of people that express the same sentiment, it can just feel so overwhelming and like there's so much pressure to figure it out and get it right and do all these things. And I think there's a lot of just freedom for us as people in that idea of do what you can, love the person in front of you. And I think, the ripple effect that has can't be overstated. Things that may seem simple or may seem like whatever. Yeah. And we've seen that in the time of Current, but it can have a huge impact.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the first TED Talk that I did was called Stop Trying to Change the World. Which sounds like counterintuitive to what we do. But the idea was, and again, it's not original to me at all. The idea really about that is exactly what we said. We don't have to change the world. The world's too big for any one of us to change. A lot of the problems that we face, too big for any one person. Sometimes it's overwhelming. You look at those problems and it's overwhelming. Oh man, there's no way to how do we fix it? What do we do? And we get lost in that a lot of times, instead of pinpointing it down to right here in the moment where you're standing and looking at it instead of, trying to change the world, stop trying to change the world and start trying to help change the life of the person right in front of you that you encounter every day that is struggling. Help change the life of your neighbor next door whose life is falling apart, and you have the ability to help in some small way for their life to not fall apart. If we all did that, then eventually the world would change because it's everyone doing what they can to make things better. And I have to give credit to where I got that idea from was a woman named Somali Mom, who was she was a Cambodian trafficked child as a little girl. And she got rescued, found her way out of human trafficking, became one of the biggest advocates and rescuers of young girls in Cambodia and trying to eradicate human trafficking in Cambodia. And she wrote a book years ago about her story. And in the book, there's a part where she's responding to, or she's maybe being interviewed, and the interviewer asks her about changing the world. And her answer is the first time I ever heard someone answer something like this. And she goes, essentially, it's not exactly how it's worded, I'll paraphrase it, but she basically said, I don't think I can change the world. I don't even try. All I try to do is look at the the little girl standing in front of me who's suffering and do what I can to change that girl's life, to help stop her suffering. I can't change the world, but I can do that. There's one little girl standing in front of me and I can help her.
I'm a little bit speechless because that's just super powerful. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the work we do is important, but there are these like issues that just seem like systemically never ending and just like exactly like what she's going through.
Yeah.
But seeing how that idea of loving the person in front of you can apply broadly to a lot of these issues, a lot of them very complex. It's encouraging, but it's emotional because it's like it truly, though, people like if you just make people feel seen and you're just willing to like truly love them in the way that's going to best help them. I mean, that is super impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think culturally too in America, we tend to think about, big numbers. We're always talking about like the largest number of people that attended our thing or whatever. And, that's great. But I think sometimes we miss the one person standing in front of us because of that. And we get more excitement out of, oh man, we had X thousands of people at our thing. And we don't get as excited about, we help this one family not live on the streets anymore. They're in a house. They have a home. They have a job. Their life is better. It's more, it helps our ego more when we can say, look at these thousands of people that we handed food to that came through this thing and look at our photos. It's not as exciting to go. It's the same thing when I was going to passing this neighborhood to go to the airport. For me, it was the recognition of, it's not as sexy to show our photos from 5 minutes down the road in our own city in a neighborhood that looks like our neighborhood that just happens to be poorer than the neighborhood that I live in. It's a lot more sexy to share our photos in a village in a third world country. But that's about us, not about them.
Right. I would love to live in a world where we are all just perfectly altruistic beings, but you're 100% right. Like oftentimes we can get lost in things that are way less important than the tangible impact.
Yeah, absolutely. We all do. And
I'm guilty of it. We all do it.
Yeah, we do it every day. I know, but it's a constant recognition at the same time of trying to be better at that. It's a constant recognition of like, no, am I focusing on the wrong piece of this? And if I am, then let me change course for a second.
And I'm smiling a little bit as you're sharing that because literally the next thing I was going to do was go over some of our laundry project statistics. So there's a little bit of irony in that transition. But,
yeah, for sure. But so yes, but there's also to me a difference in like if your focus is constantly on the numbers, that to me is where the problem is. If at some point you're looking back going, that's also the point of like, if everyone just did what they could and helped the one person in front of them, Somali Mom's a great example of this. That was her answer. But Somali Mom has also rescued hundreds, probably thousands of little girls at this point from human trafficking, has changed the game of that in Cambodia. Wasn't necessarily her intent. She was just wanted to help rescue one little girl like she had been rescued and then help rescue the next little girl and just did what she could. And by focusing on that over time, those numbers became what the numbers are. And so it's the same thing. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with looking at numbers and celebrating that. It's all about intent and purpose and motivation and what your real goal is in the moment.
100%. And that's exactly right. Yeah. Numbers in and of themselves are not inherently good or bad. They are often to be celebrated, but it's looking kind of deeper within that and making sure our priorities are always in order.
Yeah.
And that's the context in which I wanted to share the statistics and have you speak to them a little bit is up to this point, Current's been around for 15 years. So is the Laundry Project, 61 cities, 18 states, 144 laundromat partners over that time. Almost 26,000 families, 25,093 families, whatever, over 25,000 families served through the Laundry Project. almost like over 2.5 million pounds of laundry washed. We're almost to that 1,000 project mark much later this year. I think we're at 966 as of this recording. Put all of that into context for us based on everything you just shared. I'm curious as to your perception of why do you think it's been that impactful over this stretch of 15 years that we've even gotten to that point with numbers? Like, why has it become a thing in 18 states? Why has it spread kind of around the country, people getting involved, helping people? Like, speak to the kind of deeper root of those numbers and how, in your opinion and perception, it's gotten to that point in the first place. Because I know that was not, the intention when you started,
Yeah. Because little things matter more than we give them credit for. We're constantly looking for big things, big solutions, big things like that. But I think the most important things to our everyday lives are actually the little things. Laundry's a little thing. Laundry, it's usually the little things that have the most dignity and impact tied to them. Laundry, little thing, simple thing, something that most people don't really think about if they have a washer and dryer. Usually it's a nuisance for most people that like, I got to wash my clothes, or I got to wash my towels. I got to fold laundry. How many people complain about, oh God, I hate folding laundry. But take the next 30 days and not wash any of your stuff and reuse the same towel for the next 30 days. Wear the same gym clothes for the next 30 days without washing them. Wear the same work outfit every day for the next 30 days without washing it. Within a few days, every bit of how you feel about yourself, about how other people view you, about all these little things will begin to change. Your mental health will shift. And it's just laundry. It's just clothes. Affordable Christmas, just toys. But it's what that represents. Those things represent hope. Those things represent dignity. And they're intangible things we can't really put our fingers on, but they have the biggest impact. And I think that's why something like that has grown and spread the way it has, is because it really is just a simple thing and it's an easy thing to help with.
Why are the volunteers called Hope Dealers?
So I had a great friend named Mark Thrash that I had known for years and years as a pastor prior to starting Current, and he was around from the beginning when I started Current Initiatives. He was one of those guys that his last name actually was very fitting for him, Thrash, because he was like a buzzsaw coming through. Personality wise, he was just, a big personality, incredibly encouraging. There was never an end result in that, like, oh, you think it's over? No, it's not over. There's always a way out. There's always, you think your life's falling apart? No, look at this. Like, you've got this. He was always the most encouraging, always had a solution, always knew, always could see things that most other people couldn't. And anytime I was having a bad day, struggling, whatever, I knew if I called him, I was going to feel better at the end of that conversation, because he just radiated that type of feeling, what I would now call hope, that he just radiated hope in a lot of different ways. And he died of cancer at 44 years old a few years ago. Kind of not random, but like out of nowhere, aggressive cancer. And during his time of struggling with cancer and going through treatments and everything that was happening to him, he still had the same attitude, the same view of life and encouragement and all that. And he kind of got the nickname during that of Hope Dealer, because he was, even in the middle of his struggle, was filled with hope that everything was going to be okay and that everything was going to work out. And so when he died, as kind of an homage to him, we started referring to our volunteers instead of, like when we're celebrating a volunteer, instead of calling them, a volunteer spotlight, we decided to kind of name it after Mark and referred to that particular spotlight as the Mark Thrash Hope Dealer Spotlight rather than Volunteer Spotlight. Because all of this that we do, that's what it's about. It's about giving hope to people that are hopeless, giving hope to people that are struggling and trying to find a way out. And that's what Mark was. And that's what I want our people to be, people of hope that are giving hope to people that need it.
It's a beautiful thing, and the only thing I'm going to add to that is I've been incredibly lucky and blessed, and whatever adjective word you want to use, to interact and connect with so many people through being a part of Current. And Mark was one of the best ones I ever met.
Yeah,
and
he was
absolutely embodied everything you're saying. Yeah,
he was amazing. I miss that dude every day. I think about him just about every day. And I'll add to this, like, hope sounds really intangible. That word gets thrown around a lot. But hope is really the most tangible thing that we can talk about, because hope is found in clean laundry, in an affordable present, in a roof that's been replaced on a house for a family that had no way to replace that roof. All of those things are hope. Hope is very real and tangible. And everyone, every day of their life can represent hope if they want to. If they focus on the life right in front of them that's struggling and need help and offers that help in some small way, that's hope.
So obviously the last 15 years have been, unexpected in many ways, but as you look forward to the next 15, what's your hope? What's your vision, or, for that hope continuing to spread and manifest and be tangible over the next 15 years of Current? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. I have no idea. I've never been good at the what's the 5-year plan type of question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, whatever that kind of thing is. I've always thought it was a dumb question personally. I'm not saying your question is dumb.
Whoops.
That idea of like the roadmap of where this is where I want to be in 5 years. Nothing wrong with having a goal of being somewhere. But what happens a lot of times is people get lost in that 5-year plan and don't know how to adjust to just what life brings and the other opportunities. And, pre-COVID, for example, I'm sure lots of people had 5-year plans, and COVID happened and that wrecked everything for them. And now what? So for me, it's more of a question of, or my answer, I guess, is exactly that. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, poverty, struggle, needs will never go away. Human beings are human beings. The world is the world. It is what it is. And there will always be a need for help in some form. So as long as that's a reality with humanity, we will be searching for ways to meet needs and help people continue to find hope.
Yeah, and you're 100% right about that. I tend to shy away from asking those future-oriented questions whenever I have a guest on, because I tend to agree. Like, whenever people have asked me that, I genuinely never have an answer, because I share the same philosophy of life is very dynamic and organic, and things are going to evolve and change in ways that I can't perceive. That's the biggest piece of advice I always try to offer people younger than me when they ask, is like, going to college, things like that. Like, it's good to have an idea and a plan, but just be ready for things to shift and evolve. And
so I guess nothing wrong with having goals.
Not at all. That was more what I was getting to in the question, is what are the core guiding, like, there are things that are going to continue to be the same over the next 15 years and guide us. And,
Yeah, for sure. And that's also a hard one for me to answer, because when we started Current, there was no plan of being in 18 states. It honestly was, we want to help this neighborhood in this city. And I had no plans to do anything beyond that. But it just naturally, organically happened. And here we are years later with all these places around the country that we do it. That for me is also, quality is more important than quantity. So, if we never go to another state, but we do these projects in these 18 states with very high quality, and it is beneficial in big ways for the people in those places that we're helping, that's great. That's enough. And but if it keeps going, that's great too.
And to that point, we're sitting here in a city that probably neither of us expected to play host to the Laundry Project. Charlotte, North Carolina, we have 2 Laundry Project events coming up this weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was a born and bred Ohioan. You're down in Florida. We met in the middle. Yeah. We're here in Charlotte now.
Yeah, I mean, I've told you multiple times, I never in my life on purpose would have gone to Ohio, but I ended up there because of you and the Laundry Project.
I'm going to delete this entire audio because of the Ohio slander that I fully expected. Honestly, it's my fault for inviting you on. I knew it would play out like that, where at some point in the conversation, amidst all these deep and wonderful and beautiful concepts and things that we're talking about that are so, wow, it's just 18 oh man, what a great thing that's spread all, helping people, dignity. At some point there would be Ohio slander, needlessly. So that's my own fault.
I think interesting that you took that as slander. I just said I would never have gone to Ohio on purpose. I didn't say why or anything like that.
Ohio's the heart of it all. Everybody should go to Ohio on purpose at some point. I will defend Ohio. I will defend my new home in Charlotte to the death. All these places that I love because of the people. You can't replace the people. The people make up these places. There's nothing inherently special in some cases about it. It's the people. I mean, there are special things, but
you're getting real worked up about Ohio.
I'm probably part of the emotion that's coming through right now is probably the constant barrage of LeBron memes that you send me on Instagram about just like the most recent example
about him not being the GOAT.
Him talking that, and also him talking about how the Lakers never flop, and you sending these like highlight clips of them flopping.
Yeah, because all this stuff. I mean, he's the best at it. He's the best in the NBA at the flop on a foul.
You weren't slandering Ohio.
You're
and
right.
You don't ever explicitly slander LeBron and his goatness, but because I know you, I know the undertone. I know the like passive. You're pushing my buttons. You're turning the screws in the ways that I'll respond emotionally because I cape up for LeBron and for Ohio. So
listen, I was just proving your point of you don't know where it's going to take you. I never had plans to go to Ohio, and I spent a lot of time in Ohio. That's all I was saying.
Oh, I love it. There you go, folks. That's the glory. This is why we'll never start a podcast together, because we would never get anything accomplished. We would just banter the whole time about, which, could be a thing in and of itself. But our poor guests would just sit there and be like, what are these guys going on about? So,
yep.
Incredible. I love it. So as we kind of wrap up, just you've said a lot of things that are impactful and encouraging and meaningful, but you did this on your podcast and I kind of borrowed it in that regard. I always thought it was a great way to kind of wrap up an interview, but just what encouragement, would you give anybody listening if you could impart some kind of wisdom, maybe adding on to what you've already said or something new, just as people are going forth day to day?
Yeah. Probably the main theme of what we've talked about the whole time, how you do something is just as important as what you do. Whatever your work is, whatever your focus is in life, how you do it is just as important as what you're doing. How you treat the people around you, how you are treating your customers, how you're treating your coworkers, how you're implementing the new idea, how you're fleshing out whatever it is, how is just as important as what.
Couldn't have said it better. I have nothing to add. That's perfect. Where can people get connected to Current? All the ways.
Social media wise, pretty much all the channels. Our social media handle is at Engage Current. And you can go to our website at engagecurrent.org, and that'll take you. You can see all news stories. You can follow all what we do on social media. Absolutely follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those things. And you'll see what we do. You can get involved from there.
What about you personally? If you want to plug in.
Sure. Yeah, you can follow me. All the social media handles as well is at Jason Sowell, Sowell, Jason Sowell. And you can also go to my website at jasonsowell.com.
There you go. Jason, can't thank you enough for coming on to chat Current, to chat about yourself, share the wisdom, all that good stuff that, I mean, it's what a ride it's been for, me being involved 13 of those years, but the last 15 years, it's been incredible. And it's just really cool to sit here and I very reflective mood thinking back on what it means to, as you have been also just, and many of our volunteers and hope dealers and people that have been involved. It's been so cool to just see stories and social media posts and things just kind of pouring in from people, sharing what it's meant to be a part of this. And I'm just excited that we got this opportunity, and everyone go check out Jason, check out Current, social media, website, all that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.